The mansion was silent except for the clicking of leather shoes on the marble floor. A wealthy businessman, stern and exhausted after another long day, returned home earlier than usual. As he pushed open the grand white doors, he froze. Strange voices floated from the study room. Words rolled like waves: Spanish, French, Arabic, Chinese, and something else he could barely recognize. His heart skipped. Who was inside his home, speaking in so many different tongues? He crept closer, his briefcase swinging at his side, and what he saw through the crack of the door shook him more than any boardroom betrayal or corporate storm ever had. His maid, the quiet woman who had always blended into the background of the house, was standing before his little boy, passionately teaching him in 5 languages, her hands moving with energy, her voice steady and filled with warmth. The boy's tiny face lit up with wonder as he repeated words, his eyes shining brighter than diamonds. For a moment, the father's world stopped, and tears he never thought he had inside him rose to the surface. Dear viewers, before I take you deeper into this emotional journey, I want you to pause with me. This is not just another story, it is about sacrifice, hidden talent, and the miracle of kindness where you least expect it. If this moment already touches your heart, then please give this video a like, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner. Leave a comment below telling us where in the world you are watching from, because stories like these remind us that kindness has no borders, no language, it belongs to all humanity. The rich father had built his empire on discipline and strict rules. In his house, everything had a purpose, and every servant had a duty. The maid, a woman from humble beginnings, had been hired to keep the house clean, prepare simple meals, and ensure the boy was never left alone when the father was away. But she had carried inside her a secret past, years of study she was forced to abandon when poverty crushed her dreams. She once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but life gave her a broom instead of a chalkboard. And yet, in the quiet corners of this grand house, she saw something in the boy's curious eyes, something that reminded her of her own younger self. She couldn't resist. She began teaching him letters, then words, then entire sentences, in languages she thought she had buried forever. The boy absorbed them like a sponge, laughing and clapping with each new word. And that day, by fate, his father had come home just in time to witness it. At first, the father felt anger. Why was his maid stepping beyond her boundaries? But as he pressed his ear against the doorframe, his anger melted. He heard his son, who usually sat silently at the dining table, now speaking Spanish words with pride. He saw him pointing at flags, eager and alive. He watched the maid clap her hands for him, her smile pure, her eyes shining with pride, as if she were teaching her own child. The father leaned his head back against the wall. For years, he had poured money into toys, gadgets, and tutors who came and went, but none had reached his son's heart the way this woman had. It was not just teaching, it was love, care, and faith that the boy could achieve something greater. Days turned into weeks, and the father quietly observed. Each evening when he came home, he stood at the doorway unseen, listening to lessons that danced from French verbs to Arabic letters, from Spanish phrases to Chinese characters. The maid's dedication was relentless, and the boy's progress was astonishing. The father began to see his son differently. The boy was not shy or quiet, he was a blooming flower, waiting for sunlight, and the maid had been the sunshine. The father's heart ached. He had been so consumed by wealth and success that he had forgotten the most valuable treasure, nurturing his child's mind and soul. But there was a moment of conflict. One evening, during a family gathering, his relatives mocked the maid. They said, "How shameful, relying on a servant to raise your son." Their laughter cut deep into his pride. For a moment, he considered ending her lessons. But when he looked into his boy's eyes, sparkling as he confidently greeted them in French and Spanish, he realized his relatives were blind. True wealth was not in gold or reputation, it was in the courage to value kindness, wherever it comes from. The father made a decision that would change all their lives. The next morning, he walked into the study room, no longer as a silent listener but as a participant. He placed his briefcase aside, sat down next to his son, and said, "Teach me too." The maid froze, tears brimming in her eyes. The boy clapped with joy. That day, the line between master and servant faded. They were not divided by class, they were united by knowledge, by dreams, by love for learning. The weeks that followed became a miracle. The maid was no longer just a house helper, she became the boy's teacher, the father's guide, and the soul of the household. the boy grew confident, speaking fluently in 5 languages before he even turned 10. His father, humbled and inspired, began to see the world differently. He started supporting education for underprivileged children in the Maid's village, building schools so others like her would never have to bury their dreams again. And one day, standing before a crowd, the boy, now confident and glowing, spoke in 5 languages to honor his teacher, not forgetting to call her by the title she had always deserved, my second mother. The father wept openly, unashamed, his heart overflowing with gratitude. In the Maid's quiet devotion, he had found the greatest wealth of all, the wealth of love, knowledge, and humility. Dear viewers, if this story touched your soul even a little, I ask you from my heart, please like this video, share it with your family, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. These stories are not just tales, they are reminders of the power of unseen kindness in our daily lives. Before we end, I have a small request. Please comment below one thing. Who was the greatest teacher in your life, and what did they teach you? Your stories may inspire someone else watching right now. And remember, sometimes the greatest lessons don't come from where we expect them. Sometimes, they come from those who quietly love us enough to believe in our potential, even when the world has forgotten us.